Hey Collective, it's Al, and this video is actually going to be in tandem with a post I'm putting out today on LinkedIn, which actually has to do with dreams and kind of the symbolism and the relevance that dreams seem to be having more and more every day in our lives. And essentially what I wanted to do with the piece was kind of just propose an idea that as we as a species evolve, that it's not just evolving us on a physical level, but it's evolving our mental capacities and kind of allowing us to tap into maybe information that wasn't necessarily always known to us beforehand. And what I'm finding is that there seems to be a lot of information now kind of in the cosmic air, if you will, if you believe in such things. And what it's starting to affect is the way that we dream. And I'm going to share with you an actual perfect example of what I'm speaking to, which actually is the reason why I wrote the piece to begin with. But what I'm finding as far as a species is that evolution doesn't just affect us in the 3D experience. It affects every aspect of us as souls, right? As each of us goes up further and further up the mountain, we unlock doorways and information that maybe isn't known to the wider world. And we're challenged with trying to figure out what is front of the house knowledge and then what is back of the house knowledge. Because any true spiritual aspirant knows that you don't give away information unless someone asks you, unless you're being guided to do so. And dreams seem to be a very specific way in which we as an evolutionary species are now tapping into information that maybe we don't necessarily have firsthand dibs on. Like we really don't know sometimes where the dreams are coming from. And for the longest time, we just thought that they were abstract thought from the subconscious mind trying to manifest itself into us, into the personality, and that we were trying to either work through some drama or some karma or whatever it was. But it was in that sentence right there where I tapped into something that I was not necessarily aware of as much as I am now. So as we evolve and we grow as beings, there are things that we're starting to kind of uncover. For example, slogans and sayings that we have long known that have been around since, well, the beginning. Like things like life is but a dream. Suddenly for us that are, as we evolve, is starting to actually mean more to us. Like, well, then whose dream is this? Is it the all's dream? And we're becoming more aware not of just our role as trying to be good and sacrifice and all the stuff that we do on our way up. But now we're actually trying to understand the creator energy and how we fit into that greater tapestry design, right? And one of the things that's being affected greatly to a great many of us is our dreamscape. And what used to be abstract thought has now become continuous information that almost feels and is reminiscent of sacred geometry in the way that we have come to understand it as a species to be universal communication and how everything is built upon that symbolism. And so what was just before ideas or whims or flights of fancy have now actually taken greater weight to it, because we're starting to uncover the fact that as each of us tap into new information or research or discover greater truths or start to kind of tap back into our soul and who we truly are, the empowerment is propelling us to be a much clearer vessel of divine will. And we have to be careful to understand what is actually true and what is not true, and we're trying to make that happen. But one of the things that's happening in that scenario, in the back and forth, is the dream. And what I'm finding for myself and many other people that I respect and that I'm observing are all having similar experiences where the dreams now actually maybe provide us information that we would not have known any other way. And it makes us look a certain way to other people. But part of divinity and part of being a divine being, of handing divine to other people, is that you present your experience in a way that's authentic and you allow people to either believe or not believe, or to consider it or not consider it. And that's part of free will and free speech, right? But with the dreamscape, there's information that we seem to be more receptive to now more than ever. And I think it has a lot to do with where we are as a species. There are two paths that we are going down. Either we are picking the path of de-evolution and polarity, hypocrisy, greed, all the other stuff that they're doing, or there's a great many of us who are going the opposite direction towards unity, compassion, empathy, integrity. And so as the two paths diverge, the divide between the two sectors is becoming increasingly well defined. And so what is going on as a species is that we're starting to see and receive data that we don't necessarily know why we know, but that are then validated in our 3D experience either the day after or the week after, and even through my work. There's a great many things I'm going to reveal about the dream that's going to be very clear as to what exactly I'm speaking to. But first, let me finish laying the foundation. So, as we go about our business, the question now becomes, are we but figments of the imagination of our great creator, whatever that is? Or are we part of a simulated experience where we are being observed? And all of these things are now big old question marks that are hanging around the conscious leadership and the self-aware spiritual person, or just the everyday person who maybe even is atheist, but is starting to see patterning that is emerging in a much clearer defined way. And it's becoming a greater mystery for us as a species to uncover what it is that is now changing and transitioning us from an old way of thinking where the impossible was just, well, it's impossible, to now believing, well, a lot of people have proven the impossible possible. So as we make our journeys forward, we're now having to have these candid conversations. And some of us are having to actually put it out into the world and into the universe because a lot of other people are afraid to tackle the topic. So in that context, what I wanted to do is provide you with a beaming example of what I mean by the symbolism and versus the actual meaning behind some dreams, because I'm going to present you with exactly what happened, and I'm going to allow you as the observer or reader of the piece to then hear what I'm saying and then choose for yourself whether you even think it's possible or not possible. Because it seemed to be very big, and it had a lot of weight to it, and it left a very lasting impression. In fact, to be completely honest with you, I've sat on it for 2 days, and the reason is because I needed to take the boss out for the walk. I don't know if any of you do this, but I have a very clear mind when I go for a walk, and sometimes I'll ask God or whoever you believe in, I call him the great architect, to go on a walk with me, and I just meditate. And I allow the conversation to, I mean, it's internalized, right? It's just coming through you, but you know what I mean? So I'll sit there and I'll gauge it that way. And so I needed to find the right tonality to speak on this because of how much it reveals of information that might be people that are actually watching this. And so be aware that I may trigger you in this conversation. But understand it's not coming from a place of me coming at you. It's coming from how it came to me and the severity to what was implicated in it. Okay. So I went to bed the other night, and I dream in vignettes. I don't normally dream continuously, and then if I do, it's usually like for short periods of time, like maybe 2 hours, whatever. I'm not really conscious of it, but they're usually shorter. This dream I could not escape, and it began with a very clear definition of cause and effect. Cause and effect is the governing law that is over us in the physical world, right? Everything that you do onto the world is done back to you. It's a cause and effect. But spiritually speaking, the tally that runs all of the action and inaction is called karma. And there's so much conversation about karma that I'm going to leave it to other much more well-spoken people on the topic. But when you think of a triangle, you think of cause and effect at the base, and then karma is the very pinnacle of that. And it keeps track of it and is where the pendulum swings back and forth. So that was the first thing that was made incredibly clear to me as I went into the dream. So it begins with an invitation to be a summons, essentially. I had been summoned in the dream to go before the karmic courts. For those of you who don't know what a karmic court is, I will remind you that in all life, there's the law of as above, so below. Everything that exists in our 3D reality exists in the higher realms, right? That is the theory that we have as spiritual beings and people. And so I had been summoned to stand before the karmic courts in a form of judgment. And I wasn't allowed to not go. I had to go. And so I received in the dream, I received it and immediately was taken in front of a court system. But it wasn't the way that we see courts here. But I could clearly feel that I was in front of judge and jury. And I sat down and I was read a list of charges that I had apparently been accused of over the course of this life. And for some reason, I felt incredibly comfortable in the space, remembering in the dream at least, that I had been there before. Only the last time I was there at the end of a life review. I had, passed on in a previous incarnation, and so I was familiar with the review board. But this was different. But I was familiar with the feeling of it, so I felt secure. But they sat me in the middle, and they basically read a list of accusations that I had apparently received recently, actually. And what was revealed to me in the dream is that I had been under judgment for the past 2.5 years. Beginning 2.5 years ago, where someone that I had met had said, and this is the dream, remember, that something I had said to someone really hurt their feelings. And their reaction was to lash out at me. And what it did is that for whatever reason, because of the two energies, because we were both the beings of light, it kind of triggered the awareness of a higher consciousness. And so what ended up happening was I didn't know the severity to what was going on. And what they essentially had accused me of in the first sentence was that I was manipulating the people in my environment. And there's a whole bunch of shit that I was accused of. And they had found that to be erroneous. They had dismissed that whole thing. But what I didn't realize until I was in the dream, or when I became aware in the dream that I was being aware, was how long I'd been observed. And what it revealed to me is that in our world, we have come to understand whether we believe we're in a simulation, or whether we believe we are children of God, or whether we believe that we are Buddhists, or whatever it is, that we are always observed everything that we do. And that's why a lot of people believe in the simulation theory, is because it's almost like the Matrix keeps track of everything that we do, like a school. And so as I'm sitting there, I'm starting to become increasingly aware of how many beings are standing in front of me. And as I start to focus, I start to see heads of different houses in front of me. And every house was represented in front of me, and I recognized them. And so what happened was that they then went through the list of things that I have done over my life, and they asked me what I felt about them. And when I tell you that this dream was long, I know that I woke up like maybe 8 hours later, which is unusual for me, but it felt like eternity. I felt like I'd been in the dream for a very long time. But secure, because I'm a pretty good person, and especially the more that I live my life and the more that I live my spirituality and my day-to-day life, it's been a lot easier for me. So I was very comfortable with it. But what it revealed to me in the process was something that I had not really ever shared with you all, which is karma is unforgiving. And karma doesn't just affect, according to what I experienced in the dream, it doesn't just affect you in this lifetime. If you don't release your karma according to the dream, then the next life you come, you have to pay that karma back. And then there's things that happen within your life where you then agitate that karma and actually make it worse. So what I had unknowingly been going through for the past 2 years, once the first accusation was proved false in the dream, was that I was then put into what they call the karmic court system, which I was kind of amused now, awake about it, but I wasn't amused at the time in the dream. And what it was is that I was in front of the jury to see if I was going to be released from my karma, all of it. And so what it did is, according to the dream, it put me before the council, the higher councils, and I think there was like 15 of them. And they each investigated me in their own way according to the dream. And it's like really high end, like really kind of out there stuff. But if you're really spiritual, there's a lot of stuff here that's possible, right? So that's what we're discussing. So I'm sitting there, and as we went through this, however long this session was, it became increasingly clear that I was being released, and that I was very blessed in that moment. But when I thought that we were finishing up, a lot of what I'm about to say was revealed to me, and I was actually in the dream asked to speak on it. Okay. So there was a point between the Piscean transition to the Aquarian transition, according to the dream, where those that held spiritual power in the Piscean age were supposed to transfer the torch to the leaders of the Aquarian age, which are the people that we keep speaking to, the conscious leaders that are on the rise. And what happened is some of us got trapped in the karmic courts because divine beings became jealous of the next wave evolutionary beings that were stepping forward because their skill set was more advanced, not realizing that the people that were being affected negatively by this had no idea that they were advanced. In fact, most of the people that I'm speaking about that was revealed to me don't even know that they're gifted. They just think that that's just them. They don't understand that they're even special. They really don't. So what happened is, do you remember how I had mentioned in one of my recent blog posts here about the stalemate and the legal system that they keep doing? Well, again, as above, so below. So what was happening is, at least in my case, I can't speak for everybody else's, but in my case, there was a divine being that came later that saw my work and accused me of witchery, of witchcraft, and then said that I was in league with the devil. Now, first of all, I find that laughable because obviously seriously, that would never be a real thing. But what I didn't understand was why they engaged the conversation. And what was revealed to me by the end of the dream, I'm sweating, what was revealed to me by the end of the dream was it had less to do with me and had to do with karma. You see, when you have divine beings that are supposed to be representing divine light, you stand before light and you exist as a light being. But if you're not conscious, if you're not aware, if you go back to slumber, then you don't realize that you're the biggest threat to cast the biggest shadow upon humanity. And so what needed to happen was, in order to allow free will to continue, I was kept in limbo for 2 fucking years until the karma was caught up from the person who made the false allegations. So this is where it gets a little detailed, and this is why I'm proposing, like, sometimes dreams are really, really visceral, right? Like, they're like real, like, I don't, like, it made me pause. This particular person said this type of information to a group of other people who are all spiritual. And what we don't realize is that we have to be exceedingly cautious of how we speak about other people, because you never know whose name you are putting into the universe, where the universe will immediately grab attention to what you've said. And so what happened then was that this person made a comment to his friends, and those friends were in the spiritual community, and they believed him. Okay. Well, because of free will, the way it was explained to me, you can't immediately just dish out the karma. It has to have its divine timing. And so though I had done nothing wrong, and they knew it, that was what was really kind of like threw me a little bit, was that they knew that what they had accused me of was false. But because it had affected so many others' opinions of me that I was supposed to work with down the road, that it affected everything and delayed me by a long time. So I'm a very forgiving person. I was like, okay, fine. Like, I was like, okay, so where is this going? I was trying to be polite, but like, at this point, I'm a little bit agitated internally. Nobody could see it, but I could feel like a little bit miffed that someone would do that to someone else. And so I made the innocent comment. I said, why would they do that? And what had happened is that in the work that I had done, I had revealed truths about things that were to happen that the person was jealous that I knew. And in the dream, I was flabbergasted by this, because at the time, I specifically remember feeling like I didn't want that information. Like, I felt actually cursed by knowing it to some degree at the time, because I was still new to spirituality, so I didn't understand that was a blessing. I was still learning the lesson inside of it. So I was a little taken back by it. And so because of the jealousy, they started this rumor. But what happened was, and to their own defense, I guess, if you will, is they didn't realize that some of the people that they were connected to were really major. And so it affected so many different pies that it had to do its natural recourse, if you will. So the reason I'm being revealed all this information is because karma finally caught up to this individual. The people that had been lied to, that had been told that I think it was the devil, that I was into witchcraft, because I sometimes look at the tarot and all that stuff, like because I read books, that I was somehow in witchery. And what ended up happening is that they realized, and I'm using exact verbiage, that no one that produces that much light is as evil as this person was saying. And so what they did individually, not all of them, mind you, because some people are still believing that I'm the Antichrist, but whatever, bygones. I have no indication of that, and nor would I ever be interested in it, but I'm not on trial here, but you know what I mean. So in the dream, the people, 3 in particular, realized that they had been duped. And one of them is someone really, that was meant to be someone very special in my life, and that we were supposed to build a life together. But because of the action of this person, that is no longer a viable option. And so it affected the children that I was supposed to have with that person, because of the fact that they were bamboozled by this other person. So now these people that became aware in the dream of what was going on confessed to the courts that they also knew that this person had gone and paid for someone to do spell work on me. And that a lot of the things that I had gone through on my journey were actually directed by this person casting spells. Now, here's the thing, guys. Y'all know me. I don't believe in such things. I believe in divinity. I believe in the great architect. I believe that miracles happen. I believe all of that stuff. But I never give, I remember Glenda the Good Witch when she said, you have no power here. So I've never given power to that situation. But they started to give me exact details. And apparently at one point, this particular person in the dream told the person that I was supposed to be in a relationship with down the road that if I was such a spiritual being, that I would be able to feel their attack and that they would prove me wrong, that I was a fraud. First of all, I don't need to defend my work. I don't need to defend myself. And so I was very careful not to get triggered by the statement. But I don't owe anyone in the world anything other than to just try to be a good person and be of service. That's all I do. And so they then inadvertently manipulated the person by not saying anything to me. They added karma to that person. So you see how the pie started to build and build and build and build. And here I am literally minding my own business under divine protection. Nothing happened to me, but it needed to pan out in this way. So it took 2 years for this small group of friends to break apart when they realized that this person had screwed all of them over. And what it did is that now all of them are going to be called to karmic courts in order to face their karma for going along and for participating in the deed. Now, these are all incredibly spiritual people. Okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all this. I'm having more reaction right now by reliving it than I did in it, because I was very stoic, and I remembered what I'd said once before about Oprah had given really good advice once when you're on trial. She's like, if it's not true, then you just don't take it, and it just becomes an out-of-body experience, right? So that's how the personality, the trait that I was possessing at the time. I was I answered all the questions directly. I didn't try to explain anything. I knew that everything would work out, and I knew that this was all leading somewhere that I would have to somehow then explain to the world. And I didn't understand the context, but here we go. So what ended up happening is that affected a great many people. And so now they have to take care of that in-house. And on top of that, because of the fact that I am so connected to spirituality, and because I do know some stuff, other people also started to feel that I was a bad person. And so it cost me a lot of things that I didn't even know were meant for me. But what was explained to me as I was finally wrapping this up is a couple things. I'm not alone. Many divine beings that are supposed to be of service in what's coming, because it's, we're in a major transition and we haven't seen anything yet. There's a big shakeup about to happen. And it has a lot to do with karma being dished out to a great many people who have done this same thing to other divine beings. Okay? So what I'm supposed to say to the divine beings is you don't do anything here. And you will know if you've been before the karmic courts, is what they told me in the dream. Like, it was a really specific dream, dude. Like, it was like in my face. Like, this is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to do. And just, this is what you signed up for, so do this. Okay. So it is not your place to, how do I phrase this? You can forgive them because they're going to come to you, is the way it was explained to me. They're going to have to come clean in order to even start working on the karma that they've acquired. Okay. Which is convenient because one of the people in the group that figured out that this other person had lied all over me is already on their way to me. So whoever this person is, they said that someone that watches me, just be aware that everybody knows. Just know that. Everybody knows what you've done and all that stuff. And honestly, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. But just know that they know and that someone's already on the way to explain everything that happened in detail. Because that's going to help them, right? So, but for the divine beings that are affected the way I was, just know that you will know when you have passed, essentially, when judgment has been passed upon you. But that doesn't mean, and this is where it gets weird, it doesn't mean for those of you who have gone through this, that the people who then get all the karma sent back to them, of all the things that they did to you, they get it almost all at once. And so they may lash out again at the person who had nothing to do with the karmic courts. Remember, we're vessels of purity, and we live in an experience where we just try to be good people. And most of us are not evil. We're just trying to evolve and trying to be of service. Okay. You, on this end, may get backlash from them getting triggered by the fact that they didn't know who you were. First of all, that has nothing to do with you, me, or Mr. McGee over here. Like, we didn't even know a lot of this was going on. We felt energetically that something was amiss, but we didn't understand the context of it. And this, I'm telling you guys, this dream was phenomenally powerful. But karma courts does not take sides. So even if though you forgive this person like I did, I mean, I literally know every one of them. I literally know every one of them. Because I was specifically told that they're not to come with me wherever I'm going. Okay? That was in my best interest to let sleeping dogs lie. And to not, and to be very clear that I'm not gunning for nobody. They know who they are. I don't need to say anything. They know who they are. Okay. So if they lash out at you, you cannot do anything to them. Right? Like, because then you would just acquire karma. So you're in a situation where you're fiercely protected. So just know that. So when these people get their karma, which is due, onto them, because it's not just them, this happens in every different circle, right? I did say to you guys a long time ago, I said, you never know who you're dealing with from day to day. Treat everyone that you meet with integrity, with respect, with kindness, compassion, and empathy. Because you never know where on the hierarchy that soul lies. Okay. You don't do anything. But just because you forgive them like you're going to, because that's what a divine being does, doesn't mean that you can absolve them of their karma or even try to get involved with it. Let it go. Right? You can be nice, you can be cordial if you want. I don't know. Everybody's their own individual. But according to the dream, and this is why I'm asking everybody if it's even, like, this is like a real thing, right? Or could it be a real thing? But you can't take responsibility for their karma, because what you don't know is all of the details that the higher courts got out of this situation. Because remember, it just didn't affect them. They spread the gossip and lies about us to other people. And those other people happen to be connected to very high-standing beings, right? If you believe in spirituality, you understand that there's a lot more going on to our universe than just what meets the eye. So it was this whole fascinating thing. So you can't take away their karma. And if they lash out at you, you are fiercely protected. You have nothing to worry about. They can try and gun for you the whole nine, but all they're going to do is exacerbate their own karma. And that is up to them. And then the other part was, karma, as a general rule, can be a bitch. And the reason for that is that let's say that we are going through, and this was the kind of where I'm going to end it kind of. I'm not even sure. I'll see if I post this because there's a little bit of wording here I need to work on. But karma during great points of transition, especially between ages, has a hard stop, right? It has a hard stop where if people haven't gotten to that point yet, that they don't get to go into the next thing, right? I mean, you're not dying or anything, but I mean, like you just don't get to go into the next evolutionary stage of whatever you're meant to do in that lifetime. And so what happens is there's going to be a massive shakeup, something that will affect a great many people in a form of judgment, but it won't be personal. That's what sucks. That's why a lot of spiritual beings were telling everybody, do the work now, do the work now, don't wait. You know, I know that you may not believe in a higher power, but then work on yourself, self-help books, whatever it is. Like, do whatever you can to reconnect to your soul because it's going to be important. So when this event goes down, you're going to have to make the best of it. All of us. And no matter how good our karma is, understand that if you are a very evolved spiritual being, that some of us have agreed to help the people that go through this and help them survive it in a way that helps them rise. Okay? But in that sentence, listen carefully to what I'm saying. You signed up to then go through it with them. So it's super important for those of you who this is resonating with, to find their truth to be anywhere along the lines. Know how not to gain more negative karma. Don't engage the people who are coming at you. I mean, unless you have to defend yourself. Like, don't be, like, we're not idiots. Like, if someone tries to hurt you, then defend yourself. But what I'm saying is, like, don't get into the snarky and all of the stuff that's manipulative, and don't, like, cast spells or whatever the witchery is that they were accusing us of. Like, whatever the lies are, you don't do that at all. You rise. And so I just want that to be made very clear. Because by the time that I was done with this exceedingly long court session, the one thing that I really walked away with feeling great about in the midst of all of the revelations, and it turned out that people had been stealing money from me. It turned out that it was revealed that someone I used to love actually was talking so much stuff about me. One of my exes who I loved, like one of the closest things I've ever had to pure love, was going around to his friends saying that I was beneath him and thought that he was too good for me and that he just was using me for sex. Like, they went into a great list of detail as to exactly who said what, where, why, and all of that stuff, so as to ensure that I don't make the same mistake again. So what it raised in this scenario was, by the time it was all done, I remember having a sense of peace come over me because I understood more, and even though it was just a dream, there was a serenity in my soul that felt like I finally understood what was going on that was outside of my control. And what it did is allowed me then to forgive the people so as to let them go and to not lug their energy with me. And I'm now incredibly grateful to them because I know what to look for, I know who to avoid, and one of the great things about empowerment is that you learn to look at somebody and you understand where they're coming from. And one of the things about the karmic court system, from what I got understood from this dream, was that I immediately knew where they were coming from. And it reminded me of, do you guys remember when we were really young and like in junior high, especially if you're like a girl or a gay guy, and you used to be like jealous of that one person who was so unique that they kind of glimmered, and so you used to spread rumors about them and kind of tear them down and being a mean bitch because you were threatened by something that they possessed. And so I was able to understand where they were coming from and feeling threatened or bothered by whatever it is that they perceived me to possess. Because I had made mention of something that was in one of the things that my lawyer, if you will, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a Christian being, who was standing next to me. And he read something that I had once written about when you stand for yourself and you live in your authenticity, then no one can ever take away your grace because that's God given. And you don't take ownership of that because it's a present. It's part of your presence in this universe. And so you cannot take on other people's projections of what they think you're being favored for when they themselves didn't do the work. And on top of it, they then went around and actually tried to hurt these people, these incredibly sweet and sometimes naive people who are being led by the all because of what they're going to be doing as the next Mother Teresa or the next Gandhi or the next Oprah Winfrey or whoever it is. All of these people have been put through hell and high water so as to challenge them and ensuring that they won't break under pressure like the others have done before them. But that takes incredible work and ethic and integrity on their behalf. So they're not to take ownership for anything that's happening then to people around them because it's not personal. Karma is not personal according to the karma court dream that I had. It's being dished out because the divine was always protecting you. But you can't run the tally without the people doing the deed, right? Because at any point in time, free will could have had any one of these people who did this stuff to us. They could have turned around and come clean. Or they could have, any single one of them could have apologized for whatever it is that they did to you, but they didn't. And so it needed to run the natural evolutionary course to what was happening. So you have no responsibility for the divine now acting on your behalf because it's the karmic courts who are going to reset the balance. It's going to, the scales will finally balance out for a great many people who have been put in this situation. And to the beings who are then all in their head about the next wave of spiritual beings and why there seems to be so much of an uptick in spiritual gifts is because evolution is built upon our ancestors, and every single generation has added gifts and layers and love and suffering and kindness and compassion, and they built it. And so just like there's family negative karma, there's also very good positive karma. But the beings that you have been envious of or jealous of were hand-selected by the divine, knowing that they would be targeted. And that's a sense of place where you, as the recipients of this, will have to find peace with the boss, whatever you believe the boss to be. And I know I'm going to be triggering a lot of people with this. But I'm just proposing a dream that seemed to have a lot of sacred symbolism that was outside of my day-to-day activity, because I don't ever think about what people are doing behind the scenes. I'm aware of my surroundings, I'm aware of people in my environment, but I don't look for gossip, I don't engage people in such things, so it's not something that's in my scope. I'm aware of it, but all spiritual beings are aware, they just don't engage it. So it wasn't like anything that I wanted to necessarily know, but I guess it had run its natural course, because someone in the mix is going to set things right. And the only thing I was told is that for that person, I must be gracious and to be welcoming for the information and just kind of listen to it and then don't react. That I already kind of got a tip off that it was coming, and that there are people that will not be allowed back in my life. But for you all, when you covet another person, you really don't know what they've been through in their life. Yeah, someone may be a really great seer. They can see into the future, let's say, I mean, we're talking about dreams, but let's say they can see things that are about to happen. Think of all of their family who have suffered and existed and had the same skill set, who were killed or butchered or put on witch trials. All of those things have happened in our longevity. And so the recipient of the good karma is someone who's been vetted by the karmic courts, according to the dream. So you're coveting something that could never be yours because it was never meant to be for you. You had other skill sets, and you should have been using your skill sets to advance yourself, because that's how evolution works. The smarter you are, how do you stay current when you're intelligent? You keep studying. You keep reading. You keep exposing yourself to different ideology. You keep learning as much as you can about the world around you. You read poetry. You read Jack Frost. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can do in order to empower yourself and to grow. And so the entire time that you were sending spells and stuff at me, you could have been doing the work that was required for you to have your doors unlocked, whatever it is that your family would bless you with. It could have been money. It could have been I don't know, psychic abilities, if you believe in that. It could have been any number of gifts, artistry. It could have been any form of music, things that you were meant to have, but you denied yourself of it because you were busy coveting what the divine was doing over here. But when you look back at your life and when you go through your end of life review, you're going to see the severity of what this family over here has gone through, and the ultimate sacrifices that they have made, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but like over and over and over again. And so the beings that you've been targeting are the recipients of their entire ancestral line going, okay, this being is going to do something great for this planet. It could be humanitarian efforts, it can be in global warming, it can be in spiritual unity, it can be in any number of, but we're going to hand all of our good karma to this person because they've earned it, and because they are the amalgamation of our entire history, and they know it. And they don't just stand anymore for 10,000. When they come forward, they now represent 10 million. One day someone will represent 10 billion. So the dream was so intense that when I woke up, what I felt graced by was that I at least had been informed, because a great many of us live in slumber, and that's part of the piece that I had written to, is that a lot of us go through life really not engaging possibilities and potentialities, because we're so comfortable in being kind of suffering and miserable or whatever it is. And then it builds a resentment inside of us that we then project onto other people that have never done anything. Do you realize that there was 3 people that were involved in that whole mess that I've never once met in my life? Not once. I met the one in my life that was at the beginning. But this other person that did all the false accusations, that was why I was in 2 years of limbo, I never even met this person. They just became aware of me because of something I had posted on YouTube, I think a year ago, or 2 years ago. And I was accused of all this stuff because of the threat that I posed. And I just remember thinking, but I've never met any of these people. And that's what was so powerful about the dream, and why I'm saying that sometimes, even though it's like imaginative and maybe not even real, the severity to the detail and to the revelation of to which one of my exes said this and what they did that, all of that is coming from somewhere. And it's very important for us as a species to acknowledge that we're growing, and that we're going to have to start having some uncomfortable conversations and really kind of look at it and go, wait a minute, how did I possibly know that was going to happen? And instead of vilifying the person who's being blessed, maybe acknowledge the fact that God is real, and that if you have faith, it doesn't matter what house you're from, that the divine will hand you the keys to your kingdom, or will set a table for you. But it doesn't come without sacrifice and work. And so though I feel completely fine with the overall end result, I'm just saying that we're hitting a new phase of evolution, where consciously we're not the same beings that we used to be. We are accountable for our own actions. We don't necessarily have to engage the gossip and do things like that. But realize that sometimes when you say something about another person, you don't know who that person is. And you don't know why the boss has them on planet Earth. Some of them could be teachers, and they're homeless. It's not their time yet. But you don't know that. But you will when they rise. And so when it's all said and done, what I was left with was a sense of serenity that I had been found innocent, one. But two, the people are starting to become aware of the trickery and the double snare. Because one of the things that was made very clear to me is that in this particular simulated experience, divine beings are in a very weird, precarious situation. Because people have booby trapped skill sets and gifts to be used as a negative, that the devil must have done it, forgetting that ultimately even the devil works for the boss. And so, steer clear of engaging, learn firsthand. If you really want to know about me or any one of these other innocent divine beings that have been targeted and attacked over and over and over again just for being themselves, and half of them not even aware that they have a bright future in front of them, they're still thinking that they're forsaken, some of them. But a lot of people went out of their way, seeing that they can see where they're going. Apparently, one of the things that triggered two people that I'd never met was the fact that they could see that I was exiting the simulation at some point. And that pissed them off because they wanted me to get stuck with them because they weren't evolving. And it has nothing to do with me. In fact, anyway, I'm not going to go into the detail on that because that would be too revealing on who it was. But the thing is, remember, I have no interaction with these people. And so the fact that they manifested into my dream when I don't even think about them was exceedingly jaw-dropping to me. And so one of the things that is universal about that is that God works in mysterious ways, whatever you believe that energy to be. And I get it. I get it. It's scary to have people who have new insight or maybe have gifts that you don't know, but the worst part of it was that I still don't understand what they were jealous about. For the life of me, I don't understand why they were mad at me in the dream. It was unfounded at the very least, because what they were coveting is just me. It was nothing that I found to be extraordinarily special. It's just how I am. And it made me realize the importance of this message and why dreams are so important. Is because I realized that means that there are other people, according to the dream, that might be going through similar situations where they don't see their sparkle because they are the spark. You know what I mean? Like when you are standing in a certain spot, you don't see the light hitting on you because it hits everything, but you don't see a specific beam. And so it was a little bit alarming to some degree that people care that much about people who are just trying to be of service to humanity. Like that was one of the big things that I remember thinking when I was literally exiting the dream. I was escorted out of the dream. That's how weird this dream was. I was literally escorted, and my hand was someone was shaking my hand. I'm not gonna say who. And then someone else came over and congratulated me, and then I was literally escorted out of the courtroom, and then woke up in my bed. Okay. But it was an incredibly eye-opening experience because the people that were, I'm not going to say who, but at least one of them is wealthy. And I don't have a lot of money, right? Like I'm okay, but I don't have any money to speak of. But I live a really happy life. And that's what they were mad about? They were mad because I found happiness in the lowest places. And that they vilified me for having that ability, according to what I was told. And that was their big driving force, and how that hurt the divine, because the divine had given them all their dreams when they had made those dreams. When they started manifesting, he gave them everything that they wanted. And what did they do? They turned around and got mad that I had nothing in their eyes, as I was told. I have nothing. Why does that? What did he say? Why does that no one have so much insight? And so the boss was like, okay. And so that's how all of this came to be, is that was like the second part to the karma. Because it was almost like this person didn't realize that in coveting what I was being given, whatever it is that they, by the way, in the dream it was very clear. They were projecting this onto me. Many of you think I'm weird as it is, right? Like, I'm kind of out there. I'm very, very spiritual, and I'm very, very gifted, but I'm a writer, and I'm very creative. And so none of that seems very extraordinary to me because I'm living that experience, right? But the fact that they had gotten everything that they've ever wanted and were actually mad, the core of where the rage was coming from is that I found happiness in nothing. And I just remember feeling bad for the person. And that's why it was so important for them to be very clear with me that I can't, just because I forgive or understand or have compassion for somebody, doesn't mean that I have any right to try to deal with their karma. That's why I'm who I am, right? That's how they phrase it. I was specifically told, you're one of the most forgiving people on the planet, but this is not in your hands. And the people who are receiving karma right now are receiving karma unbiasedly for what they've done and to others and what they're doing to each other. And so when I wrote the piece, what I was speaking to directly was that question, guys. We're starting to connect back to each other in a collective consciousness. Is it possible that as we evolve and become more empowered and more who we are meant to be on behalf of whatever the divine energy is that we represent, are we then tapping into a higher sense of self that is even more protective of you, or that is more loving of us than was before? Because obviously the old paradigm is going, and the new paradigm is now emerging. So where we walk in between that is really important right now. Because like I said, whatever the event is big, and it affects a great many people. And I mean, I can tell you what I thought it was, but I'm not one of those people who looks at the end of the world type of thing, and I don't give it that much credence because every ending has a beginning in my mind, and I'm sure I'm not afraid of death. So it's kind of one of those things where I just kind of ride the wave, but I'm not speaking to that. It's not, I don't think it's going to be the world's not going ever, you know what I mean? But there just seems to be some karma that is going to be paid equally all at once. And one of the things that I found interesting about that revelation in the dream was I had remembered writing 2 years ago that I said, and I didn't realize I was right until the dream. Or maybe, according to the dream, I'm right. And it could be my ego. Let's face it could be my ego. I'm not going to downplay what I went through, but it could be part of my ego too manifesting. But I will say this. 2 years ago, I had said to everybody, we went through a reset. This is right before COVID. I said, we went through a reset. And because we went through a reset, just be advised that for the next 2 years, we're going to be facing atonement. And I forgot that I had said it until right now. And so what I just want to end everything with is dreams aren't just what we aspire to do in this world. Dreams are equally things that are communicative. And if we are but figments of God's imagination or Allah or the Buddha or whoever you believe in, if we exist in their mental space, then is it possible that the purer we are, the cleaner we live our lives, and the better we treat each other, that we become more receptive to the subtle nuance of dreams and may better understand concepts and ideas that don't exist without that level of awareness? Because when I woke up, I'm telling you right now, I was physically very aware that there was more significance than just a dream. And the fact that I am standing here telling you about it should tell you how strong it was. And I'm going to leave it up to you to even ponder if such things is even possible. But just be aware that the way you treat another human being is monitored by whatever you believe in. And unfortunately, a lot of people, not a lot, but some of in this group, were non-believers. And that's fine, free will. But just because you don't believe that something isn't going to come back at you doesn't mean it won't. And so when it does, just be responsible enough to go, okay, this is what karma is. All of this bad stuff is happening to me because of all the bad stuff I did into the world. And it's an incredibly harsh way to be awakened to spirituality. But it is the law. Everything has cause and effect. And that's where I'm going to leave everything. I hope you guys have a great day. I know it's kind of a heavy conversation, but it was such a powerful dream that I just wanted to present it. Have a great day.